Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features WildCATs X-Men, The Golden Age, #1, cover dated February 1997. So this comes about 4.5 years after the launch of WildCATs #1 in 1992. And this is the first crossover between Jim Lee's WildCATs and the characters that made his name in comics, his legendary run on Uncanny X-Men, and then his launch of the second X-Men title, Adjectiveless X-Men, selling 8 million copies. So many fans like myself were only salivating at the prospect of a crossover between WildCATs and X-Men, and in particular at the prospect of seeing Jim Lee drawing the X-Men once again. But the first issue in the series, there was 4 parts to this crossover: the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Modern Age, and the Dark Age, set in the case of the Golden Age, in the early 40s during World War II, the Silver Age, the 70s, the Modern Age, the 90s, and the Dark Age, 2019, the far-flung future of 2019. And the various chapters were of varying quality, but in my opinion, this is the very best one, certainly in respect of the art, which is by Charest. So we see the credits here, Scott Lobdell on the story duty. The story is serviceable. It's kind of like a World War II adventure in the mold of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And sorry, not the Temple of Doom, but what's the name? Raiders of the Lost Ark. Sorry, what a blank for me there. Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first Indiana Jones film, and the third one, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So obviously involving Nazis. We've got a Nazi colonel there in the background, but he has a secret, which we'll learn what that is inside this particular comic. So the cover image is not too bad. I mean, it could have been more exciting. And one thing to note about it is that whatever the original size of this art, it's been reduced to fit the cover and fit below the cover logo, because you can see how teeny tiny is Travis's signature there, and the date is 1997. And and one thing to note about Travis Charest's art in this particular issue is that he's doing pretty much everything, including the colors, until the last few pages where it's clear he needed a hand. I was looking at the original art scans online where some Wellstorm Homage Studios inkers came on board to help him out, obviously beat the deadline and get this thing to the printers. One little last thing I want to note before moving beyond the cover image is, where's the other handlebar on the motorbike there? It's missing. So that's a strange little detail to miss in the image, because clearly he was looking at photo reference. Yeah, a little bit odd, but in any case, let's open this one up to the first page. And what I like about this particular comic, I mean, like, look at the price there in 1997, $4.50. So this was expensive at the time. You've got a cardstock cover, but no other gimmick for this. You have 41 pages of story and no advertisements breaking the flow of the story, and I like that. So it opens there with an establishing shot of the Eiffel Tower, but it's Nazi-occupied Paris. A close-up there on the swastika, and then we've got this colonel talking, and who's he talking to except for Logan? And of course, it's been established in X-Men comics that Logan is long-lived, and that he was a Canadian Secret Service operative during World War II. So here he is getting shot at by this guy with the machine gun, but he misses him entirely. Lots and lots of detail here in terms of the bookcase and also the safe that's been opened. And the implication is Logan has taken something from that safe that he has cracked. So the credits for the story are at the end of the issue. So I'm actually going to skip forward to the credits just so that we can see them here at the end. And that was a thing at this time, that you get the credits at the end like in a movie. So we have story, Scott Lobdell, art, Travis Charest with Homage Studios. So they're helping out on elements of the coloring, but he's mostly doing the coloring on the page. This is pen and ink on paper, but also with some grey wash, watercolors, and some watercoloring as well, I think, for some of the colors, but also pens and color pencils too. So some of the colored pages are scanned, and on some of the pages the scans are not fantastic. They lose detail, they're a little bit grainy, they're not high definition enough, which is a reason why I'd love to see an artist's edition of this particular comic. I think it would look fantastic looking at the art in high quality scans at the original size it was created. Then with the rest of the credits, computer colors, Wellstorm FX, letters, Richard Starkings, and comic crafts, Dave Landfair. So again, looking at the original art pages for this, some of the lettering is pasted down on the artboard, but it's clear too that some of the other lettering, on pages like this is digitally done. Editor Mike Heisler, and consulting editor, of course, from the X-Men comics, Bob Harris. So let's go back to the opening of the story, and here we go. Turn the page. A nice image here of the Nazi colonel taking this scroll from Logan, and we've got an open border panel there. Looks good, nicely designed, and the colonel says, "In my hands I hold what may be the most powerful artifact in all the Fuhrer's arcane arsenal." And Logan responds, "It must be pretty powerful. It already has you sounding like a low-grade funny book." So a little bit of a self-reflexive, cheeky joke there in terms of the nature of the plot here to this particular comic, this Golden Age comic. And the Nazi colonel says to his underling here that he knows what to do. Quietly, not necessarily. I think the guests might like to hear what we do with enemies of the Third Reich. And Logan says here, "Great." As he undoes his bow tie, "I'm going to die as a party game." So the bow tie is undone. He's taken his jacket off. And then this is a nice little scene. He says here, "Is this going to come out of your salary?" So the guy's confused. What is that? And then the Louis the 16th chair. So he smashes him across the jaw with it. Does it taste as expensive as it looks? But look at this too. Travis Charest getting the height right for Logan here. Logan's supposed to be 5'3". This guy, he could be 6'4", something like that. He's a giant anyway. So the proportions here in perspective, it's really interesting. And also the choice to have an open border panel, and then this second one here with the action of Logan smashing that chair across the guy's jaw. So we get a close-up on three-quarter profile close-up on Logan here. So here we are, just the three of us. They start shooting, but then the lights go out. The Nazi soldiers thinks that Logan's responsible, but he's not. So what's going on? There's someone else acting in the background, someone that Logan is unaware of. That's a really nice image of them shooting their rifles at Logan in the dark though. And another great page here with this particular soldier wondering what's happened. He could not possibly have survived that, he says. So they search with their torches. They see a body on the ground bleeding. And who does it turn out to be? It's their colleague, Tungsten. He must have used the man's body as a shield. And there's Logan sneaking up behind him. Interesting decision here to break the scene with the border panel, giving us a suggestion of Logan about to strike that sword across the back of the man's head and decapitate him. So we don't actually see that. Instead, we get the colonel here who has heard it somehow, but not his colleagues. "Did you hear it that time, Hauptmann?" "No, sir. It's the third body to hit the ground in as many moments." So the colonel has enhanced hearing, and we'll learn why that is a little later on in the story. But the dinner party is ongoing there. The colonel tells the guests not to worry about anything, but he tells his assistant to bring the car around. So he's getting ready to leave the party. And meanwhile, outside, we see this figure coming up the spiral staircase around the building with the sea there in the background. And of course, this is Zealot, and she's got a sword with her as well. So at this point, I want to note, because I think this is a good panel to show it, is how very detailed is the inking on this particular comic by Travis Charest. So he's penciling and inking himself, but look at the level of tight detail there. Obviously, at this point, he's using micron pens, and that allows him to get that fine detail. But in my view, the artistic influence that he is drawing on is the likes of the copperplate etching artists going all the way back to Jan van Eyck in the 15th century, Rembrandt in the 17th century, and then Gustave Doré in the 19th century. His style very much, imitative and inspired by those particular artists, in my view, most particularly Doré. I really see the Gustave Doré influence. So you can imagine the amount of time it took to ink these pages. And then, as I said, in addition to that, he's doing the coloring as well. So really a labor of love for Travis Charest, and it looks like it on the page as well. And again, I want to reiterate that I would love to see an artist edition of this particular chapter of the crossover in reproduced at the original size, the original artwork size, and in super high definition as well. That would be fantastic. So let's get back to the story. Here's the Colonel here, and he's about to leave when there's an explosion. And here we've got Logan sheltering behind a pillar. Great detail there, the anatomy. Clearly Travis Charest using photo reference for his art by this point. Logan shooting off his handgun there, his pistol. And interesting layout from Charest as well. He always did like this circular panel layout, and he uses it quite nicely over this particular anchor image of Logan hiding behind the pillar. Then we've got Zealot arriving, and she asks for the scroll. The Colonel says, a popular item it would seem, especially considering that the world is not supposed to know of its existence. I will tell you as I've told your friend, but she has no inkling of Logan. The answer is no. And look, he's got a soldier there hiding behind that particular pillar. He's going to come into play. And so this is an interesting double page spread here, where we have a top tier of panels featuring Logan, and we've got a bottom tier of panels featuring Zealot. And what happens in each tier, it mirrors or echoes what's happening in the other one. At the end of this, they run out of bullets and they leap out the window of the building, and so there they are, crashing out from different stories of the building. And this is fantastic work here. Look at all this detail of the it's marram grass is what you get growing out of sand dunes by the sea, and the wonky fencing there as well. Just such a lot of detail. Clearly Travis Charest enjoyed drawing this, because why would you put yourself through it, all that detail, unless you were enjoying it? And just look at all the detail there with the blades of grass flying up in the air as Zealot hits the ground, and then the shards of glass from the windows toppling down on top of her too. So now these two see each other, and initially, you know, in the grandest comic book superhero tradition, they mistake each other for enemies. So Logan there, he's no gentleman. He gives her a right hook to the jaw, but of course it's Zealot, so she's got super strength and a degree of invulnerability. She's not a human at all. And so she kicks him in the chest, it looks like, pulls her sword again, and Logan here says to her, as we see the gleam on the point of her sword, look lady, I think that's not the gleam on the front of her, on the tip of her sword, that is an oncoming vehicle. Look lady, I think we might both be making a grade A mistake, he says. And these are headlights from a limousine here, Nazi limousine. And so Logan pushes Zealot out of the way, and Colonel WildCAT is making his departure, and there he is, waving the scroll at them too. So that's a nice little kind of almost comic detail. And so Logan's determined to go it alone from this point on. He's stashed a motorbike outside. He says there he planned ahead, but Zealot's already on the motorbike. And it's got a little sidecar there as well for another little comic moment where Logan gets in to the sidecar, but there's also a uniform there that he obviously placed for operating incognito after stealing the scroll. So he gets into the uniform. He's got the loaded pistol there too, and they're hot on the trail of WildCAT in the limousine. So Logan starts shooting at him, shooting through the back of the limousine, and WildCAT here, but look at his face. It's starting to look not quite human. Enough of this nonsense, he exclaims, dispose of them. So the driver says, okay, starts shooting behind. And well, sorry, this can't be the driver. This is the another passenger in the limousine. Starts shooting at the pursuing pair. Logan gets up on the sidecar and jumps up on top of the limousine. This is very Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade here, where he's on top of the limousine and punching out the Nazi that's come up to shoot him. And then here in the background, what are these tentacles? And look at this transformation of WildCAT's face. He tells the driver, I said lose them or die. So he's not human. He is some kind of alien. And of course, in the WildCATs mythos, he's a Daemonite. Now this is an interesting layout on this particular page. We've got 16 panels, evocative of Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns layout. And look at the level of detail, such fine detail. These are practically miniatures. And again, it seems to me like Travis Charest challenging himself to do this level of detail and this level of storytelling on one page. And he does it very successfully, in my opinion. So we've got, you know, all of this action going on. The driver's shot here. Sorry, let me see. No, he's not shot. He's stabbed by Zealot, dead, and his foot is on the accelerator, so the limousine is speeding out of control. Meanwhile, Wolverine's trying to deal with another Nazi on top that's trying to stick a blade through him. Zealot coming up behind. There's going to be a bend in the road up ahead. Logan knocks the guy off the top of the limousine, off the side of the cliff, no doubt. And then he gets in the car and he goes for the gear stick, but that tentacle wraps around his arm. We see the tentacle smashing out of the windows of the car, and Zealot knows now WildCAT is one of them, which means either the Daemonites have infiltrated the Nazis or they're somehow allies. Well, we never get an explanation of that in this particular issue. And Logan here asking with shock and horror, what are you? So this is a nice little sequence as well. Zealot getting up on the motorbike and leaping off the top of it and presumably onto the limousine. So Logan's grabbed by the tentacles here. You can see the, what is it, like this secretion dripping off the tentacles as well. Really nicely rendered, what I call it, like scaliness of those tentacles as well. The textures of that and the inks, really nicely done by Charest. And here we go. So Zealot stabs the Daemonite WildCAT right through the roof of the limousine, and she says, I've had some experience with his kind. I'm certain if the situation was reversed, you would certainly have made a strong, albeit unsuccessful attempt to accomplish the same, the save there. So this is an interesting panel down here at the bottom. It's doing nothing. So it's just purely there for aesthetic. Travis Charest must have decided he didn't want black all the way down to the bottom of the page. Decided to go with this panel instead and just put some grey wash in. Intriguing. And then we have Zealot still on top of the limousine. It's time to get off. So she jumps off and then Logan is stuck in the limousine with the Daemonite that is spurting blood or something or energy out of itself, and he's there looking in amazement at this alien creature, but he sees the scroll, grabs it, and then the limousine finally goes over the cliff's edge, crashes and explodes. But did Logan get out alive? Yes, he did, but he's covered in gore. Really interesting. Then Zealot comes up behind him, bops him in the back of the head with the pommel of her sword, and now she's got the scroll. So she tells him her name, the name is Zana, and thank you, human. And that's the end of our opening action sequence. The next day. So this is probably Paris still. And we've got Logan here in civilian gear, and he's on his own to begin with, but somebody comes up beside him and he says to this person, look, Sarge, I ain't in the mood for your cloak and dagger stuff any more than I enjoyed bailing out your loser American butts on account of a say-so from my Canadian bosses. I love you too, furball, says the sergeant, but you'll take your assignment same as me? Blah, blah, blah. This is Nick Fury. This is Sergeant Nick Fury back in 1942. That's nice because in the next chapter of the crossover, the Silver Age one, Nick Fury turns up there as well. So pretty cool. And just kind of blink and you'd miss it, that it is Nick Fury. But there you go. Great anchor image here of this steam engine at the station. So now we're going to get another staple of these kind of World War II movies. It's the whole business of getting onto a Nazi train with your papers. So the Nazi inspector here says, I'm afraid these papers are out of order, to Zealot. And Logan's there as well on the platform, and he recognizes her. I'll be dipped, Blondie, he says. So she's in trouble, and the Nazi inspector says, quite too bad for you and your gutter language that you speak no German. And then he switches back to presumably French. But if you would like to step into my office, I would be more than happy to arrange safe transport. I see, she says. And what if I merely disembowel you right here? But Logan comes over and he is wearing a little pin there that indicates he's high ranked in the SS. And he says, is there a problem here? 9, mein Herr, says the inspector. So that sorts that out. But look at the level of detail here. The travel trunk that she's carrying, this case as well, the bench here in the background. Really nice stuff. Then the steam engine in profile, but now in silhouette. Nicely done. So Logan says to Zealot, he's done a spot of research since they last met. For someone who was trained by the Coda, you spend a lot of time putting yourself in bad situations. So that surprises her. You know the name of the Coda. And I like this. He says, I know you weren't clumsy enough to be the Hand, who obviously operate in the Marvel Universe, are vicious enough to be Sci-Fan. So yeah, that narrowed it down. So she doesn't want his assistance, but he's going to they're going to have to operate together nonetheless. So here's the train on the tracks, steaming along, and Zealot says, I suppose you want to join me? And he says, so long as you got that scroll, lady, I'm all over you like saltwater taffy on a hot sidewalk. And who's this character? Well, he's recognizable from, I think, the second series of WildCATs, Kenyon. And he's a Travis Charest designed character. Interesting design, kind of creepy looking. And here is I think it's a Stuka coming up behind with what appears to be a bomb. Is it going to bomb the train? Well, we're in the carriage with Logan and Zealot. She's got the scroll, and he says, look, my bosses ain't telling me anything I don't need to know. Only what they think and I think aren't the same thing. First up, why is that piece of paper so important to everyone? But here is, what is it, the bomb dropping? So it drops down into the top of one of the carriages as Zealot is explaining what the scroll is. She calls it the Lazarus scroll. It belongs to a race of aliens who've sought dominion over the Earth for centuries. That's the Daemonites, of course. Great, says Logan. Next thing you know, you're going to be telling me there are a bunch of mutating humans trying to start a genetic civil war. Irony of irony. I've heard that prediction as well, she says, but it is not supposed to occur for another few decades. So we'll see when it does occur in the second chapter of the crossover, the Silver Age one. So what was in this? It wasn't a bomb, it was a Daemonite. So now that's aboard the train, and Logan, with his enhanced senses, sniffs it out. Bad news, Blondie. Another one of your thingies is here. So she opens her travel trunk, and obviously she's got some equipment in there. Now, this is interesting. There's civilians on the train. This father goes up to the carriage where the noise emerged from, opens the door. We just see this single eye, green eye peering out, and then this horrifying face here of the alien Daemonite hissing in the dark. So they're all dead. We can infer that. We hear the scream here. And now Logan and Zealot both are in their, what would we call it? Like their action clothes. Not superhero uniforms, but action clothes for what is going to come. So Zealot here explains, our primary concern is the Lazarus Scroll. It must be protected at all costs from the Daemonites and the Reich. The safety of the passengers is secondary. So Logan, not happy with that. You heartless witch, he exclaims. You don't care about anything except that scroll, do you? At this moment, no, she says. But then she comes around to explaining the whole star-spanning war between the Daemonites and the Karens as the only ones willing to stand up against them. She says of the Daemonite expansion through the galaxies, planets scorched, children slaughtered, any hope vanquished. Only a handful of us have drawn a line in the sand, foregoing our families, our personal desires. And if the cost to stop such a foe is the wants of a few, so be it, for the alternative is more horrible than you can imagine. So she's willing to sacrifice the civilians on board the train for the main objective, getting the scroll. And this is a really cool image here, full page image of Zealot in her technological Karen garb here. And maybe that's her sister, maybe that's supposed to be Kenesha, her sister. Let's see. So another good page here of Zealot. She's got a little gift for Logan, and of course, you know, like, this is all dramatic irony as well. It's a weapon for him. It is a special glove with these 3 claws on it. He says, "Nice work," as he puts on the glove and regards it there. "Thank you. I suspected you'd like it." So now we know in 1997, it's known in continuity that Wolverine's got his bone claws before the adamantium is bonded to a skeleton. But Logan in World War II doesn't know that he has the claws, which is interesting, that there was never any situation where his life was threatened, that instinct, self-preservation instinct would yield the claws being extruded on self-preservation instinct, or if he was in a berserker fury that they wouldn't pop out. I find that intriguing. But anyway, set that aside, back to this particular story. So they find themselves facing the Daemonite here. He's after the scroll as well, of course. And then Kenyon makes his presence known. That's a pretty cool anchor image of him with his big sword there as well. And Logan and Zealot recognize him. So that's intriguing, because the implication is that this character now spans the Marvel universe and the Wildstorm universe. So now they're facing off against 2 foes, everyone interested in the scroll. So now we're going to get a little action sequence here. Zealot going up against Kenyon. He says, "You cannot defeat me. Destiny rides at my side." And Logan's going up against the Daemonite. But what's this? There's a complication. There is a bomb set on the side of this bridge, as the train starts steaming up towards it. So there is a time bomb ticking, literally. And now we have this action sequence here. Interesting that Charest goes to silhouettes here for portions of this panel and this one in particular as well. I wonder, is that an indication of some deadline pressure perhaps, or is it just purely aesthetic? It looks good either way. Great anchor image here of Kenyon getting the better of Zealot in the sword fight and sticking the end of his blade through Zealot's torso there, and he gets the scroll from her. The scroll, before you bleed to death all over it, he says. Great angle on the face there as well. This top down 3/4 profile angle, really nicely done by Charest. Another great anchor image here of the Daemonite. It's got Logan by the throat. So it looks like Logan and Zealot are going to be knocked out of the fight. The train is still steaming along. The time bomb's ticking. The Daemonite, with its jaws wide open, tells Logan that Zealot's dead and to join her. But Logan here, he's not finished. So he drives those claws right through the throat of the Daemonite. Bub, don't be counting your chickens and all that. So Zealot's not dead, of course. She's already up on top of the train. Look at the perspective there. So well done by Charest. It's about to go over the bridge. Kenyon here has a rescue from the train. It's the Stuka plane from earlier. He grabs onto the rope ladder and he's gone. He says, "You live in the past. The future is mine." The bomb is ticking. I like the little detail as he's grabbed onto the rope ladder of his hat there flying away off his head. That's really nicely done by Charest. So there we have the face of the clock of the time bomb. It's ticking right down to midnight. These two jump off the top of the train. Can he swim? Asks Zealot. Logan says, doesn't matter. The fall will probably kill us. That's a quotation from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid when they jump over the side of the cliff into the water below. So the bridge explodes. That's the end of the civilians on that train. They're all dead. But it goes back to that conversation earlier. The more important issue is the scroll, because millions will die if the scroll is does what it is hoped to do by the Daemonites. So here we go. They survived the fall, and there is a convoy of Nazi trucks here rumbling along the road. Logan sends the Daemonites aboard those trucks. So just blink and you'd miss this, but you just see the back of someone's leg getting into the back of the covered truck here. So it's Zealot and Logan. And then they've arrived, the driver's out of the truck, and here they are. This is very Indiana Jones and the Temple, or not the Temple of Doom, why do I keep saying the Temple of Doom? Raiders of the Lost Ark here, like the last act of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So we've got this big secret cavern. There's a big locked door at the end of it. The swastikas here hanging from the ceiling of the cave. Logan using those claws again to rip out the side of the canvas of the covered truck. And what does he see? He sees that there's a ceremony about to take place. So it's Kenyon here is officiating over the ceremony. He's got the scroll. He unrolls it and starts speaking that alien language of the Daemonites. And the huge doors begin to open. The vault opening. So here he invokes Ebron, you who fell to earth with the first ones, Daemonites. You who even the other Daemonite lords feared, I've come for you, my queen. So this is a female Daemonite. And the Nazis are getting a little bit worried here. But the general says, silence, we bear witness to history. Logan whispering here, this is bad, right? And Zealot saying, you've no idea. So we're into the last bit of the story. More action to come. But who's this Ebron character? Here she is appearing in this particular vat, it seems. And beside it is this crystal or something or other, her power. So Kenyon says, you'll have the power, but Zealot says no. She starts shooting the back of the heads of the Nazis there. And Kenyon's pulling his sword. This Ebron one is reaching out for, she's asking for a sacrifice. The crystal is still there in its container. So now we're going to get a little fight here between Zealot and Kenyon. And you can see that the detail is leaving the art at this point. So what's happening here, I've checked out the original art pages for these last few pages of the story. Charest is not inking himself by this point. He's getting assistance from Amaz Studios. So you've got JD inking here, you've got Trevor Scott inking, and probably anyone else that was around getting these pencil pages ready to send off to the printer. And also this page in particular is not very well scanned. The detail here on Zealot's face and hair, very grainy. So not a good scan of the art. So I'd love to see this art rescanned at high definition in an artist's edition, like I said earlier. So Zealot says this stops now. She's going for that crystal, whatever it is. Ebron is using some of her powers on Zealot, and she's boasting here, once I'm reunited with my life source, the crystal, the oceans themselves will run red to sate my appetite. Logan's attacking Kenyon here, and Kenyon gets the better of Logan. Have I pleased you, my queen, he asks. And she says, we are but on the threshold of the pleasures yet to come. The secrets of the scroll of Lazarus will have to remain just that. So we've had 39 pages of story, and it's over in 2 pages. So here's Zealot throwing that crystal, and throws it right into her forehead. And for some reason she explodes. But she wanted the crystal. It was the source of her power. So I just don't understand. If it's the source of her power, how is this the thing to do with it? To throw it and right into her forehead? Why doesn't it just power her up? I'm not sure, and we don't get an explanation. Like, the story had to end, and this is how it's ending. Not the most satisfying ending, in my opinion. But there you go. It's over. And then we just get a 1-page aftermath. The whole cave, whatever it was, it's destroyed in the explosion. Logan survived somehow. And the little claws are gone from his glove. They're gone. And he's there, pulling himself out of the rubble. Blondie, we did real good back there. He sniffs. She's gone. And then he finds her broken blade. Sits down. Little pun to end with. Wild, he says. So a wild adventure, the end. It kind of came to a very quick conclusion, but the best thing about this comic is the art. Superb art throughout. The best art in the crossover between X-Men and WildCATs. Really, really good stuff by Travis Charest. And I've shown you the credits page there. Here at the end, there is the cover again, a bigger size, but actually poorly reproduced digitally. It's very grainy here if you look at it up close, so not superb in that regard. And then here's Jim Lee's cover. So there was an alternative cover by Jim Lee and Scott Williams, and kind of disappointing, like not fantastic, to be honest. Strange that advertisements for whatever was coming out from Wildstorm at the time, the only one worth mentioning is this one, Wildstorm Spotlight #1, Majestic at the End of Time, a thought-provoking tale by Alan Moore, illustrated by the talented newcomer Carlos D'Anda. Kicks off this new series spotlighting some of Wildstorm's characters who don't star in their own regular titles. This is an amazing story. I have this one, and I may review it. If you're interested, let me know to review it. It's basically an Alan Moore story of, like, Majestic is Wildstorm's Superman, and it's kind of like you can imagine this as Alan Moore's last Superman story, but using Majestic for it. Really, really well thought out, very thought-provoking, and intriguing, and like super offbeat story. A really good one from Alan Moore. Advertisements of other titles that were coming out at the time, and there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on WildCATs X-Men The Golden Age. Let me know your thoughts on this comic in the comments section to the video. If you enjoyed my review, please like the video on YouTube. It really does help the channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.